now today the topic is death and dying, which is one of the very important topic. I think many people don't want to talk about death and dying. Usually, nobody wants to think about that. Nobody wants to talk about that. And Buddhist, we always talk about death and dying. We always think about death and dying, which is completely opposite what usually the people think. But here one concept which is nobody wants to think about, and here one thing they want to talk, they want to think. Two different concepts. But the reason is completely same reason. Why they don't want to talk about death and dying? Because they have fear, they have suffering of fear. So that's why they don't want to talk. And the other side, the Buddhists, we are talking death and dying, we think about death and dying. The reason is because we have fear, same reason. So we have a suffering of fear of death and dying, that's why we talk, that's why we think. So in order to get rid of that suffering of fear of death and dying, there's a two-way choice. There's a one way, don't think about that, don't talk about that. That's the one path they choose and they try to avoid it. And here there's, to get rid of that fear, death and dying, it's because of that fear, they talk about that. They want to know about that. They want to think about that, how to get rid of that, how to overcome. So two different methods, same reason, the same topic, but there's two different methods. The method which is the first we ordinary, usually the people we choose, not think about that, not talk about that, that method is not very smart method, because to pick that method, we are not, what you call, that method is not going to remove our suffering or fear of death. Because where we choose that method is we hiding, we ignoring that sufferings. So hiding, ignoring that doesn't mean it's gone. It's there, we just hide it. So any circumstances when they arises, it always comes up. It's always bother our mind. So the here other choice, we're showing face to death and die. We're dealing with that. We try to know about that. We educate that to try to, what you call antidote, think, and using the logical method to how to stop that. It's very difficult method, but more powerful. So if we able to apply, if we able to do that, that method will going to stop, going to remove that fear of death. The first method, it's not going to remove it. It's just hide there. It hiding, ignoring. That doesn't mean it's gone. So that's why the two different methods. So we should always know, why we are not talking about that. It's also fear. So on another side, why they're talking about it? Because of the fear. So now you choose which method is more smart methods, right? But in order to choose this method, you should be really intelligent. You should be strong. You should be really enough, the wisdom who can able to antidote that fear of death. So first, fear of death, where it comes from, why everybody has that suffering or fear of death. Why we all, scared or fear about that death. Might be some people think, oh, you believe in reincarnation, you believe in rebirth, so you have fear you will going to fall down into lower realms, you will going to born in animal dreams, that's why you fear. There are another things. But I don't think this is the only the reason, the fear of death. I think because there are many people who 100% completely believe after their death, they will going to born in heaven. They will going to see their families, their grandparents, or they're fully believing that. But still those people have fear of death. If you look the present moment of life and after the death, maybe there are people who believe after the death is much better life, much better. But still, you have fear. If this is much better, you have to joy, right? Or I'm going to much better life now. But we still have fear. So that fear, where they come from, what are the causes of that fear? Because in order to get rid of that fear, actually suffering of death is not that much, difficult, not that much. Suffering of fear of death is much worse than suffering of death. Suffering of death is just few seconds. The suffering of fear of death remain whole life. We all have that. Much, much, much worse than that. That's very clear. So it is very important to really, understand, really, cognize what are the causes of fear of death. Why I have a fear. So here, one of the main causes of fear of death is human attachments. That's the makes us fear. So we have so much attached. We have attached to our families. We have attached to our material life. We have attached to our power, reputation, resource, and everything. As long as attached, then of course, when death comes, you will going to be separated. So that's why we don't want to separate with these things. So that's why we have a fear, I will going to lose my family. I will going to lose this or that. So that's why we have fear. So one of the main causes of suffering or fear of death is our own attachments. As long as attachments there, always fear always there. So if you have a very strong attachments, you might have very deep fear of death, suffering or fear of death. If you have so many attachments, you have so many fear of death, depend on our attachment. So if we want to get rid of fear of death, what we have to do? Just prayer is not going to stop, right? That's very clear. Just reciting mantras, these are not enough. So fear, because of I have attachments, very much emphasized in this life, material lives. So as long as that causes is there, then of course results always be there. Result always be there. So cause and result is, the result is fully dependent on the causes. So if you don't want that result, the fear of death, we have to get rid of the causes of fear of death, which is that attachments. So usually when you have really fear about that, when you hear this, when sometime fearful disease comes, then you have fear, I'm going to die. So when you think that, it's not because of disease makes me fear. Disease are the just condition. The fear which is within our mind stream there. So the fear because of attachments. So the attachment is part of our mind. So the fear is inside, within our mind. Disease is just for condition. Because even people we have, disease, as long as when you don't recognize the disease, you don't have that much fear. Then go to the hospital and done checking here, then doctor say, you have something. Then psychologic, immediately fear, immediately something you have completely different way. Which is, if the disease is only the cause of death, of course, as long as when the disease, you have to be fear, right? When the disease is there, till you not recognize, you don't have that. When you identify you have this or that problem, disease, then fear comes. So that comes within the mind stream. So that's clear telling us that fear, which is because of when you identify that, then one of your mind thinking, now I'm going to lose my family. I will going to lose everything, or everything will be going to separate. So that's because of that thinking, it creates you fear, worry, then depression, then stress, then feel lonely, then all those superstitious thoughts will come, everything comes. Then really it's, put your mind too much down, very down, cloudy mind, painful mind, sadness, very fearful there. So that source comes from attachment. So we should really, today, when you are healthy, when you're able to think, that's the time we have to prepare to deal with that causes. When you are already on this situation, very difficult. Your mind is fully dominated by, fear. When your mind is fully dominated by fear, depression, stress, you can't think. You can't, able to think that. Because in order to think, in order to, fight to those mind, those, fear, you need mental power, inner strength. You need inner willpower. So when your minds become very depressed, when your mind become very weak, there's no energy in order to fight. So when you are in that situation, then sometimes if you are not familiar before, when you get that situation, then very difficult to fight back. Then makes you more scared, makes you more worry, more depression. So your mind is full of suffering, full of sadness, very painful, very, heavy unpleasure, feelings there. So if you want to get rid of those suffering, these are possible. If these sufferings are impossible, then we don't need to think. But these sufferings are possible because those sufferings created by our own mental afflictions. It's not about the external material. It's not about the disease or any other circumstances. The root causes of those psychological, pain, suffering, fear, it's created by our own mind, which is attachment. One of the main things is attachments. So attachments are curable, are changeable. These are the mind. If we think, if you really try it, these mind can reduce. Eventually, these mind can disappear. It's possible. So today, when we are fresh, when we are healthy, when your mind is, strong, we should use those mind and really try to deal with that causes of fear of death. So if you don't do it today, then when these things comes, then very difficult. How much try? It's very, very tough, because only the person who can able to fight the fear of death is only the individual. This is completely self-responsibility. You have to fight. You have to get rid of your inner fear for death. External things like a pain and all these things, doctors and medicines and injection and all this can do, something. But the internal pain, the fear of death, depress, fear, worry, these inner pain, you have to do that. Nobody can able to do. This is completely self-responsibility. We should really think, that's my responsibility. If you don't take self-responsibility, then when you really facing to the dying, when you are in dying, then really very difficult, very, very difficult life, very. So then you're complaining, you're angry, you shout, screaming, whatever you do is not going to change that. It's maybe only the drugs put it and just sleep. That's maybe only the choice. Then death in life, same sort of, well, you just blind mind, nothing that much. So rather, we should prepare today. It's very important. So first, here, Buddhist concept, okay, in order to get rid of fear of death, we have to show face to the death and dying. So to showing face to the death and dying, the first step is we should really think death is certain. So one day, I will going to die. Even these things sometimes very difficult. Many people maybe never think about I will going to die. So just think, oh, death is certain. I will going to die. It's not only the brain. Really use that logic, those reasons. You should. Nobody survive in this. This world. There are very famous teachers came here. Very intelligent doctors came here. Very rich people, very powerful people came here. Finally, they're all gone. Nobody survived. From the religious point of view, is that from Buddhist, Buddha himself, right, 2,500 years ago, came here, finally gone, finished. So nobody survived. Use those logic. My great-great-grand, my grandparent, they're all this, finally they're all gone. Nobody there. So one day, it will come to me. So that's very important. It's not by only the brain level, rather by heart. Believe that. So that's why we call analytical meditation. Think again and again. Oh, one day I will going to die. It's a little bit fear. It's a little bit uncomfortable, of course, because we have so much attachments. So why it is fear for me? When you think about that, makes you fear, makes you uncomfortable. When you realize that, you should don't reject, you should don't avoid it. If you go that, your attachments win, you lose. So when you feel like a fear, very uncomfortable feeling, you think, wow, those enemies there, I have to get rid of them. Fear, because of I have attachment in this life, very emphasized. So as long as if I don't get rid of these causes, one day they will take over me. Then it's create full of fear for me. So when I feel uncomfortable, I have to be more focused to get rid of that, to stop that. So, encourage oneself. Just think about that is certain. That is really one day I will going to die. Then second, actually there's many other reasons. The first, death is certain. They say death is certain because nobody can able to stop that. Medicine, any powerful, whatever we have, money, power, whatever, nobody can able to stop the death. So that's the one reason. We think, nobody can able to stop death. So I think that's why one day I have to die. And my lifespan never increasing. It's day by day decreasing, right? Our lifespan is day by day decreasing. We are day by day getting closer, closer, closer to the death. Then one day fall down, right? So we are getting closer, closer to that. Day by day, 1 second, second by second, I'm getting closer, closer, closer to the death. So that's the reality. Then second stage is the time of death is uncertain. So many people might think, oh, one day I will going to die, but not today, not this month, not this year, maybe after 10 months or 10 years, maybe after 20 years, maybe after 50 years. Not today, not this week, not that month. That's the measure. We have that. Even like the person who is dying still might be thinking, not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe next. Still thinking there's something hope. We're keeping that. So here, because of that reason, then same, we're doing same things, the attachment, still holding. And that's, so here the second step is the time of death is uncertain. So the time of death is uncertain, which means the reason is, oh, when will I die? Nobody knows. Maybe next year, maybe next month, or next week, maybe tomorrow. Nobody knows, right? That's the truth, that's the reality. The reason is because general, all the world, all sentient beings, our life is no guarantee, general. And specific when you think about the death life, it doesn't mean about the age. There are many young age dying. There are very healthy people are dying. So also thinking the condition of death, so many. Condition of survive is very small. Condition of life is small. Condition of death is so many. Food supposed to be condition for life, but sometimes food will become a condition of death. Medicine also condition become of death. So there are so many conditions for death. So we think the time of death is uncertain. So think again and again that, then finally you feel something. Oh, the time of death is really uncertain. Then third, at the time of death, nobody can help, which means my money can't, my family can't, my resource, never, ever, nobody can able to help except peace of my mind. As long as if my mind is peaceful, happy, then that will help me at the time of death, really happy feeling. So accept that any external thing, nobody. Sometimes the external family, instead of help, makes you more worse things. I'm dying, they are crying, screaming, makes more sadness, makes more worry instead of helping. It's not going. You alone going, and those families surrounded you, screaming, crying, whatever they do, it can't stop your death, right? You seeing these things makes you more worry, more sad, more worry. Your material, you living in a royal, very expensive things surrounded you. At the time of death, nobody. The gold, whatever you have, material, nobody can help. Instead of helping those material, makes you more fear, more worry. I'm going to separate them. I'm going to lose them. So really unbearable pain, sufferings, living with that. So at the time of death, nobody can help except your inner peace of your mind. It's called dharma. Peace of your mind can only help. So that's when you think again and again. That will first, instead of avoiding the death, we again thinking, oh, one day I have to leave. One day I will going to die. Second, the time of death is uncertain. We don't know. There are so many conditions for death, natural disaster, or the accidents, or disease, or so many conditions there. You don't know when will I die. And at the time of death, my work, my job, my money, my family, nobody can help me. Today, from childhood to till today, working very hardly to accumulate these material things. Our life is, we sacrifice to get all those material. But at the time of death, these will not going to help. Instead of helping, they will make me more miserable life, more fearful life. So think again these, really, your mind is slightly change. Change, which means what they're changing is, they help to reduce that attachment on this material. So that's the one worst our suffering, which is created by human attachments. Even in the present moment of our life today, we have so much stress, we have so much depression, we have so much fear, we have so much worry we have today, right? Everybody have that. Fear, worry, depression, stress. What are the causes? They are external things. These are the just condition. One of the root causes of this, pain is created by human attachments. We have so many attachments. We have a very high expectation. So many attachments. We want this, we want. I didn't get that, I worry. I have that, I fear for losing this again. You don't have, you are suffering. I want this. Because of not having them, I'm suffering. When you have that, you have suffering for losing these things again. All those suffering, the root causes where they come from. Attachments, very clear. As long as so many attachments we have, how much you get it, how much you achieve, how much you create it, deep of your heart, always be living with fear, always be living with worry. If you don't have, you have fear, you have worry, you have depression because of not having them. You are not satisfied. Then, even if you have, deep of your heart, have fear of losing these things. Oh, I will going to lose that. Then, all the dramas we have to do today to protect these things. So, as long as there's attachments there, then easily anger, hatreds, jealousy, all these other afflictive emotions comes very easily. So for instance, if I have so much attached to this mug, this is just ordinary, just simple, cheap mug. But you label it, you label whatever you say, oh, it's beautiful, oh, it's my photo is in there or something. You just label it. You label it if you make, you label it, you make this is very important. This is something precious. So as long as it's not going to, it's precious or important. Precious, important, your mind make it. So it's when they become very important, it's in my mind, seeing them as a very important. So that minds come from attachments. Because we label it makes very important, then your attachments growing. Finally, you have very heavy attached to this mug. So it's not about how much is it, it's attachment. So when you are very attached to this mug, then when you lost that mug, you will be really angry, right? When somebody break it, you will be really, really angry and hate. So what level of anger and hatred you get it depend on what level of attachment you have. If I have very heavy attached, when they lose that, I will be very angry. If I don't have any attachment to this mug, when they lose it, nothing effective. Don't care, right? Nothing changed there. So the pain we have here, losing something, because of losing that pain, one of the causes of that pain is human attachments. So we should really understand first, seeing your attachment is the one of the main causes of all those fear of suffering of death, fear of losing the job, fear of losing my families, all those fear, worry, depression, one of the causes is my attachments. So we should really, it's not just academic, rather through your own experiencing. Through your experience, you really believe, and it's not just blind belief. This is the reality. This is the truth. So understanding, educate yourself to find the really causes of those pain. I live with that pain year by year, with those pain, which is one of the causes is come from my attachment. So seeing your own attachment is the poison mind, which is one of the main causes of this inner pain and suffering today. I have that. So that not by brain, through your heart, strong believe that reason, then you feel like really I have to get rid of those attachments. So that's why the meditating, the death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. At the time of death, nobody can help except dharma. So these are the beginning level. We're practicing this. First, initial level practice, facing, yourself, facing to the death instead of ignore or hiding. We're showing our face to the death. So one day I will going to die. The death is uncertain, and I don't know when will. And the time of death, I will going to lose everything, all my families, everything, wherever you have attached. Think one day I will going to lose all these things. This is the reality. Nobody can change that. That's the way we're born. We're born alone. We have to go alone, right? We're born comes with nothing. So of course you go with nothing, right? That's the nature. So we should think this psychological way. Think again and again. At least that only, even thinking that will help to reduce the attachment in emphasizing all those material things. So as long as you're thinking, one day I'm going to lose, either lose today, either lose after 20 years, but I will going to lose one day. So as long as when your minds accept it, when they losing your job or family, whoever, when they lose, not much create pain there, because you already know that. You're already accepting your mind. So as long as your mind is not accepting, that's why the reality comes. Even you accept or not, reality will come. When these things comes, you are not accepting, then problems. You are not going with the reality. So one day it comes up. How much you hide it, one day it comes up. Then very difficult, very unacceptable, right? You are not accepting. Then they're forcing you to go that way. You don't want, they're forcing you. There's no other choice. How much miserable life, how much painful, escapeful life. So that's why rather we accept it, which is we know understanding this. Then when you go, not that much bother you, because you're already being that. You're psychologic. Your mind already gone there. So body real going or not, that's not. Pain, suffering is psychological suffering. Fear of death is the consciousness, suffering, mental suffering. It's not physical. So when you prepare already before, your mind's already gone there. Your mind's already know that one day I will die. At the time of death is uncertain. At the time of death, I can't take anybody. I have to go alone. Psychologically, you're thinking again and again and again. When these things real comes, it's not surprise. It's not something new things. You're already familiar with that. So that's why it can help to reduce suffering of fear of dying, suffering of fear of death, right? That's the first thing. Then, now when you know the causes is attachment, so in order to get rid of that attachment, one of the causes, the attachment, where they come from, what is the attachments? The attachment mainly two function, the mind that function two things. One is the attachment, wherever I attach to things, my heart, that believing that things are stable, permanent. Then another cause is very attractive, seeing them as a very attractive. So seeing very attractive with a very stable, that's the main thing, attach. That's why I'm going to attach. Stability, which means first when you have relation with somebody else, physically, very attractive person. So the very attractive person, when you see him or her very nicely, you attach, right? So very attractive person. Then you stay with them, your conversation, you're going with them, eating with them, whatever, doing things slowly. You're seeing him or her is very unstable person. One moment screaming, crying, next moment laughing, smiling, next moment talking something. It's like changing. It's called summer weather. So one moment cloudy, one moment it's raining, one moment sun shining. You don't know. It's so too much changing. So when you see the person is too much changing, very emotional, very changeable, even very attractive. So as long as when you know this is very, not stable person, it's very changeable here, there, then slowly it reduces your attachment. Still an attractive person, but as long as when you see, oh, this is not stable person, then it will be reduce your attachment. So attachment is not only the object as attractive, also there is something grasping or grasp, permanent, stability. So as long as when they see everything's changing, it's lose attachment. That's showing us one of the causes of attachment is the mind of permanent grasping. The consciousness who grasp permanent stability. So that's why to reduce the attachment, we have to deal with that, the mind of permanent grasping, mind of grasping the permanent, unchangeable, stability. That mind, we have to change that. So in order to reduce, in order to get rid of that mind, what we should do, we should meditate on impermanence. That's the only thing. So mind of grasping the permanent is the mistaken consciousness. It's mistaken consciousness, which means wrong view, wrong consciousness, who believe something which is not truth, who believe things which is stable, permanent, but these are not stable, permanent. All the things are impermanence, right? The reality is everything's are impermanence. Attractive, unattractive object, whatever object, all the objects are impermanence. Impermanence, which means momentary changing. So as long as when you don't perceive that, then that mistaken thoughts, it's who believing something solid, permanent, then that mistaken consciousness, the wrong consciousness, create attachment, which is fundamental based on mind of permanent grasping. So because of that mistaken consciousness, if attachment with a fundamental comes from mistaken consciousness, that means that attachment is also mistaken mind. It's wrong consciousness because it's based on wrong consciousness. It comes from wrong consciousness. So that's why the proving this is wrong consciousness, which means this is not the reality. It's completely mistaken consciousness. So as long as with a mistaken consciousness, that means it's curable, it's changeable, because these are not the truth mind. So there's something misbelief, there's something struggling, ignorance, don't understanding. As long as when these things understand, it will be changed. So in order to get rid of that mistaken mind, the mind of grasping impermanent, what we need is the wisdom who understanding the impermanence. So that's why they're meditating on impermanence. Impermanence, gross level of impermanence, very subtle level of impermanence. There are so many levels of impermanence. First moment, seeing the flower. When you see the flower, beautiful color, very attractive color here, there, that's why we attach the flower. That's why we have to pay money to buy these things there, right? At the same time, one part of our mind, when we attach, we already grasping stable, beautiful, attractive objects. So when you look at flower, maybe right now we didn't see this flower is changing second by second, momentary changing. We can't see that. We can't cognize because our wisdom has not enough to perceive the reality, the momentary changeable, subtle impermanence, second by second, momentary change. We don't see that. But we can see the gross level of impermanence, which means this flower, after 1 week, when you look at it, already changed. The color is changed, and those freshness is changed, getting worse. So we see, oh, this flower last week, very beautiful, very nice color, now today, it's not. So that means that flower, we can see this flower has changed within the week, right? That we can see that within a week, this flower is changing. So when you think that, then use that logic, that reason. If the things who change within a week, that means these things are changed within a day. Without changing within a day, how can they change within a week? So we don't see the changing within a day, but through that logic, we're seeing the things with the changing within a week. So use that logic and give that information to your heart to accept this flower is changing within a day. It's changing within a day. So then you use, or the things when they're changing within a day, that means these are changing within hours. The things where they're changing within an hour, that means they are changing within minutes. So when the things changing within a minute, that means they're changing within a second. So that's why we're using, even I didn't see second by second this is changing, but the reality, this flower is changing within a second by second. So using that logic again and again, so your mind slowly, slowly accepting that things are changing within a second. So you apply everything, all your phenomena, all the object where we attach, everything's changing within a second. So that when we are very attached to our body, so because of very attached to our body, but the nature of our body's impermanence is changing within a second by second, but we don't see. At the same time, we grasp that body is permanent. Because of that, when the body change, then we feel fear, we feel something stress, we feel angry, we try to how to keep my body, this way, that way. So that's why we spend so much time, we spend so much money to try to keep that body same as before. That's what we're doing. So external material we're using because we have fear of the changing our body. So we have fear of suffering or fear of changing the body. We can't bear those suffering. That's why we spend money, that's why we spend time to try to keep our body same. But those things, those material, those money, can they really fix your suffering or fear of the changing of your body? Can they remove that suffering? Not. Right? That not. We still, day by day, we have that fear. So the person who has more attached to their body, they're more, when they see their face in the mirror, then you see, the hair colors change, our face, the wrinkles getting more and more. Everything when they change into worse and worse. They never change into better and better. They change into more and more ugly. And each time when you see these things, makes you fear, makes you worry. Then you have superstitious thinking. That's why my husband, my wife, it's not taking care of me. They ignore, maybe they're seeing me as a very ugly person. Then angry, hate, all those emotions. Even you spend so much money to try to make, beautiful whatever we're doing, but it's not fixed there emotionally. Because that emotion problem is attachment. So as long as if you really know that this is the reality, second by second changing, it's millisecond by millisecond, everything's impermanent, that will really, you accepting that, when you accept it, then that fear of changing will reduce. You're accepting. So it's not something like force you. So that's why it's a very different way. Nobody wants to live there, but as long as when you accept, not that much. But accept doesn't mean you don't take care. That's also foolish. I can take care as much as I can, right? So go middle way, which means not extreme too much, not extreme in this side. Taking care of my body, eating, exercise as much as I can, but the reality of the nature of body is minute by minute it's changing. It's going to be worse and worse. So one part of your body you're accepting, same time you're taking care how much you can. That's go middle way. So these impermanence, So gross level of impermanence, then subtle level of impermanence. Using that wisdom to understanding the nature of the things are impermanent, that will help to reduce our attachments. As long as when they reduce the attachment, then completely change. Way of your thinking is change. Your mind is much more calm. Anything external things change, it's not that much bother you. Usually it's really bother me. Fear today, not that much. When I lose my job, not that much fear. When I lose family, somebody, not that much fear or stress and angry. This is part of my life. This is part of my. I try to find job. I try to do this thing, but everything I have today, eventually they will going to, lose. They will going to separate with me. Finally, it will go. You one part of your mind, deep of your heart, knowing these things, then surface things comes and goes, not that much bother you. That's the one understanding the impermanence, gross and subtle, the gross level of impermanence, which is death, dying, these things. So that's first. Death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. At the time of death, nobody can, which means the object of attachment, where you always thinking this, nobody can help except your peace of your mind. These three first make really familiar to go these things again and again. It will change your concept first. Then next stage, process of dying. Now you already trained these things. You are familiar. Now when you're dying, how can I apply? When we die, what it comes, how I do that. So here, for the Buddhist a concept of death, a dying, which means first, in order to, free from the fear of dying, suffering or fear of dying, we have to educate, we have to understand what's meant by dying, what's meant by death and dying. So as long as when you know that, then we look how to do this, how to deal with that. So here, death, it's very simple. When you're saying, I am life, or he is death. So death and life, the distinguish between these two things is, as long as your consciousness, your mind, and your body, when they are together, it's called life. As long as when the mind and body separated, death. So that's the simple, right? Your mind and your body, when they're together, life. When they separated, death. So that's the definition of death. It's the separation of your mind and body. As when your mind and body separate, it's called, it's die, finished. So here, I don't want to go very detailed, the detailed explanation in Buddhist concept, Vajrayana, Tantrayana philosophy. So I want to go more simple way. So here, usually, when we talk about body and mind, there is a gross level of body, there is a subtle level of body, there are very most subtle level of body. So they have put it into three: gross, subtle, and most subtle. Same the mind, gross, subtle, and most subtle, a very subtle mind. So the three things. Very subtle mind and very subtle body, most subtle body, never ever separated, always be together. So the very subtle mind, never death, it's always remain. And that the continuation of the mind is always be remain, never separated. So that's why when we talk about the death and life, which is we are talking about the gross level of mind and gross level of body, that's the only we're talking about. So here, when the mind separate from the body, usually the body is like a house who hosts the mind, the consciousness. The consciousness we host by our body. So when the body slowly getting older and it's getting weaker, finally, that body can't host the mind. So then when they can't host the mind, that's why you lose the mind. That's why you call, no, die. So when the mind and body is separated, it's not just second like that. Its separation is maybe first your mind is 100% depend or relying on the body, then 90%, then getting slower. So it's slowly your body is declining, your mind is separating from your body step by step, finally completely separated. So when there's separation from the body from gross, then getting subtle. That's why we call the process of dying. So the process of dying, which means your mind is slowly separation. The process of separation, your mind from your body. The process of separation, mind from the body, is called process of dying. So now from that point, usually there is a 25 gross level of object and so very complicated. So I go very simple. The structure of body, we have mainly 5 elements. First, earth element. So earth element, which makes our body solid, right? The solid body because of the earth element. Then second element is the water element. So 90% of our body is the liquids, the water. So the water element. Then the element of heat, fire element. So body, to function things, you see we have naturally heat in our body. That's because of the fire element. In order to live, to survive, in order to digest the food, in order to survive, the element of fire. It's very important. Then next thing is the wind element. So all those movement, the bodies, you can move here, there, we're moving, all those movement of element is the element of wind element. Then last element is consciousness, the mind element. So those the 5 element is this, who struck. I smell some burning. Did you smell? Okay. Where is burning? I don't know. Something I smell burning. But that's the element of this. Mainly the 5 element, right? That structure we should really understanding. That's the body. The function by those 5 elements. So when we separating from the consciousness, when we dying, each element's declining. It's dissolving. It's each element's a decline. So first, one of the gross element is the element of earth, the earth element. When the earth element dissolve, you see, that when people are dying, first their limbs getting thinner, the bodies shrink, limbs are getting thinner. Naturally, we all have like a nature freshness, the light, freshness. So when the element of earth element, when they're dissolving, that decline the body. You can see the body don't have that fresh, something light. It's declined. So that's your limbs are getting thinner, your body's shrinking, and your freshness of your bodies are also declining. That's the external sign of dissolving your earth element. So your eyes quite hot. Usually we move here, there, around here, there, still moving, but not that much. Very slow. These are the sign, the external sign of earth element dissolving. So each element, when they dissolve, there's an external sign, there's an internal sign. External sign, which means everybody can see, doctors and everybody can see. But the internal sign, which means only the person, the dying person can see, nobody can see. That's why I call internal sign. So the external sign come that, then internal sign, the dying person, what he or she sees it's called the appearance of the mirage, like a mirage. So everything's not clear, you can't see very clear. Everything's like a shakies, like a mirage. So seeing like a mirage. So many people fear, everything's moving, what's going on? Don't think it's created by your own mind because of the elements of the earth can't function, can't host the consciousness. So that's why when they're declining, that consciousness seeing something by their own mind, like a mirage. So that moment when you're thinking, when you see this, you feel like, oh, now my earth element is dissolving. So instead of fear or worry, you already know, oh, this is now earth, sign of earth element is dissolving. Then second, water element. When the water element dissolves, and what you're doing is the liquids, your mouth getting dry, lips are getting dry, mouth dry, you feel thirsty, the inside the eye, the liquids, are not there. You can't move your eye here, there. It's only in one place. It's wherever they see, only stay that way. So not movement of eye. All the lips are drying, mouth inside, everything's drying. That's the sign of water elements dissolving. External sign, everybody can see that. Now internal sign, the dying person, first it's mirage, like in shaking. You see something, but it's very shaky. Slowly, it's completely changed into like a smoke. That's called seeing as like a smoke, which means it's very smoky. Didn't see the clear image. It's very unclear image, like a mist. When you look at it, it's like very smoky, like a mist. That's the sign of water element dissolving. Then next, fire element. So when the fire element dissolves, then slowly your body is getting cold. Usually we have heat, so it's slowly that diminish the heat of your bodies. When the heat of your body diminish, that's the sign of external sign of your fire element is now dissolving, finished. Everybody can see that. Then internal sign, the dying person, what they're seeing is called seeing like a fireflies. So it's like a scattering the sparks, sparkles, like little fires or something like everything's you seeing like so many like this fireflies. So that's the internal sign of dissolving your element of fire, it dissolving. So sometimes that heat, sometimes it's declined from toes to all the way to the upper body, from down to upper body, sometimes from upper body to down body. It's going this way or that way. For the Tibetan, usually we call when they beginning your declining your heat from down to slowly going up, that means the good sign. It's you're going rebirth, good, higher rebirth. When they're beginning from head to go to the toes, so bad sign. You will go to lower rebirth. It's called your consciousness now try to journey from down part. So that's why it's a lower rebirth. It's a sign. Usually it's called like that. So whatever, but it's declining your heat from your body. That's the sign of your fire elements dissolve. Then the next, the air, wind element. When the wind element dissolves, then it will cease your breathing. So your breath no longer there. You completely finish breathing cease. And that's the external sign. Internal sign is the dying person, slowly they see like a orange color, sort of like the fire flame. When you burn something and dig a hole, a fire inside there, you don't see the fire, but when you look from there, you see the flame of those fire, that color, like an orange color. So that firefly first will sparkle everywhere, slowly is changed, and it's going it's like a very fire, like a fire flame. It's like a very bright orange, sort of like change. That's the sign, internal sign to dissolving your wind element. So usually, medical point of view, they say now he's dead, finished. Your brain is no longer functioning, your heart is not beating. So that's the way usually from medical perspective say, oh, now this guy is gone, finished, death. But from Buddhist point of view, it's still not die. Still he is dying. His consciousness still there, but it's getting more subtle level, but still there. So the consciousness level, there's also 4 levels to dissolve in your consciousness. So consciousness first is called white appearance. Then second, red increase. Then third, black near enchantment. Then the last stage called clay light stage. So there's 4 different stages. First, white appearance. Then second, red increase. Then third, black near enchantment. Then the last stage called clay light stage. 4. Still they are dying. So your brain, whatever shut down or whatever, still their consciousness still remain. So your mind is not that much depend on your body. Still they are depend on your gross level of body, not at 100%. So each mind, each elements, when they're dissolving, your mind, your consciousness getting subtle. That's why, external things, loud, whatever, that you're not going to hear because all the sensory consciousness completely dissolved. So you don't see whatever there, whatever smells they put it, you can't smell, you can't hear. That's going much, subtle level. So then, first, white appearance. White appearance, which is, generally it is saying like when we're dying, Buddhists believe that one of the subtle consciousness is to remain in our central channels, in there. So when we dying, the source of the body, that we have today, the source of this body is come from 2 things. One is from father side of the eggs, the white eggs, and the mother side of red eggs or red drops. It's called white drops and red drops. This is the substantial causes of our body, right? The body come from there. Father side of white drops and mother side of red drops. These 2 joined together, this whole gross level of body come there. So in saying like the source of the white drops, of the source of essence of white drop is actually in the crown, in that level. So when we're dying, so that the drops come from the crown to settle through the central channel. When the drops going down through, you're seeing like a appearance, white appearance, which like a full moon, the middle of the night without any cloud, like a full moon, like that kind of bright, white. You appear in your mind. You feel like just only, like a very bright appearance. There's no any external sign because you are only like a very subtle mind. So there's no external sign is same. But the internal that dying person seeing is the white appearance. That's because of that drops coming down. From the mother side of the red drop, its source is in the belly. So from that point, when the red drops going increase, it's going up. So when the red drops going up there through the central channel, the drops, one small drops going up, you appear like a red increase, which means you appear in your mind very like a bright red color, like a middle of the day, like the light of sun, the very bright red color. You're seeing that. That's called red increase. Then the black near attachment, which means eventually completely gone, and you feel like completely darkness. Your mind is completely gone. It's like a gone, which is a blind, complete darkness. It's called black near attachment. Then finally clear light. Slowly, then your minds become very clear, like early in the morning, without sun shining, without moon and star, just nature of light. You have some kind of very clear light, which means very bright mind. One of the subtlest consciousness. That's so many practitioners try to remain at that point. They try to remain, practice, meditate. So we do have, even in today, there are a number of great masters who remain in that stage for 7 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, at least 3-4 days. Many monks, nuns, they remain on that stage as clay-la. And that moment they focus on the meditation on emptiness, because your body is not like a function like usual. You are separate, look, feel, and there's nothing in it to grasp things. It's just luminous. The mind very clear light and luminous there. So this is one of the best chance to understanding the ultimate reality of self. Where is the self now? Is this mind? Is not a self. There's nothing any other things. So it's a very good chance to understanding the ultimate reality of self and others. So they try to meditate, emptiness or any other what you usually they're doing. They keep that mind very virtuous and remain there as much as they can. Then finally, when the mind when the journey separate from the body, then it's called death. So till that, what is the evidence? It's not dying. Maybe even 7 days, not talking, no eating, not looking. It's like a corpse, right? It's like a dead body. But how we prove this from the scientist point of view, how we prove this is still not dying is one of the like a miracle thing is that body never decomposed. So even in a hot weather, without use ice and injection, that body still never decompose, never smell, as saying remain as like usual. So that's very clear. It's I have my own experience in my teacher. When I finished my study, I then went to the Yume monastery. Then 2001 he passed away. Then just before he passed away, I came back and to see him, and I have short vacation. That monastery is very strict. You're not allowed to go. But fortunately, that time His Holiness going to give teaching in one different monastery. So monastery closed it. All the monks went to give. Then that's a very good chance to me to go to see my teacher. So I was there maybe with him 3, 4, or 5 days. Then last minute when he died, is whatever these things comes. But when he died, he remained in that clay-la state at least 5 or 6 days. So we never use any ice. It's the India, very hot weather, South India. No, nothing injection, nothing there. It's just leave us. We put a blanket, 1 or 2 blanket he usually weigh there. Very hot weather, no air condition. We don't have these things there. But his body never decomposed, never smell for 5 or 6 days. So that's from my own ICM, but we do have many like these kind of things today. So that's the one thing. Why it's not smelling? Why it's not decomposed? Because there's something, their body is still, there's something remaining working with their mind. Their subtle mind still there, something they're doing. Don't have any, for me, I don't know why not, but only the thing is there's something there. So when the consciousness leave the body, then you see after a few hours, then you can smell. It's like a meat, then it smell or decomposed and all those, you can see that. So till that, if they stay 20 days, 3 weeks, 1 week, still remain very fresh there. So that's the process of dying. So the many people, what you have to do is we have to know these things again, and mentally, psychologically, we just meditate these things again and again. That's the way we're going to do this. It's called preparation. So when the actual death comes, you have not that much fear. You already know these things will come there. So maybe if you meditate every day like that, maybe instead of fear of dying, maybe you will be very exciting. Wow, it will become real. Till today, I'm visualizing. Now it comes real. What is real looks like. I really want to see that. Instead of fear, worry, depressed, you are very happy, you are enjoying, exciting to see those, process of dying. So your mind is fully under the control by yourself, no fear. So when you want to meditate, you have strength, you can able to concentrate, you can able to do whatever you want. As long as when your mind is full of fear, full of depress, full of worry, there's no way to meditate. Nothing. Very difficult. And suffering with fearful life. And it's when the emotion, when the body is changed, you see so many things, you hear so many things which is not real, you feel like a crazy. People see like this guy is going crazy now. Because that's appearance. When they appear, they believe this is the truth. That's why they fear. That's why. As long as when you know this is an illusion, it's created by my mind, it's not reality, then these things not bother you. You're still able to concentrate on your own things. So process of dying, it's very important to know that. But in order to practice this first preparation of that, death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. At the time of death, nobody, which we have to put it is, we have to put all your attachment, or object of attachment, where you more attach, these the things you should think. At the time of death, this will not going to help me. So you should think again and again. That keeps you, helps you to reduce your attachment. So you getting more freedom. As long as when you have 100 different attachment, you lose 100 different freedom. So your life is very miserable, no free. Because your mind is stuck. If I attach to there, one part of my mind is stuck on there. Always my mind something. When these things change, it's changing my here, bother me. So that's why as long as if you are 100 different object of attachment, you're losing 100 different freedom. So miserable life, fearful life, very painful life. So only the way to get rid of that attachment is to think about the impermanence, to